YouTube, what's up? Back again for another daily fishing video here on Andrew Upshaw Fishing. Today I'm going to break down one of my favorite baits, especially in the fall, and that is a spinnerbait. You know, not all spinnerbaits are created equal. You know, some are smaller, more compact, some are large with big blades and everything in between. And believe me, guys, this is a particular bait that you can fish from the beginning of the year, let's just say January, and fish it all the way through December. You know, a lot of people, especially in the beginning of bass fishing, especially tournament bass fishing, the spinnerbait was a staple. You know, it won a lot of tournaments, the classic and everything else. I mean, there was guys that literally picked up a spinnerbait at the beginning of the year and never put it down the rest of the time. And as fishing has progressed, you've seen that trend kind of slowly dissipate. You know, you've seen guys put the spinnerbait down and pick up other baits, like a vibrating jig or a swimming jig. You know, a lot of different types of baits out there. And they're not wrong. You know, there's a lot of really good situations that a vibrating jig is going to outperform a spinnerbait. There's just no doubt about it. But today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down for you exactly how I pick a spinnerbait, what I look for in a spinnerbait, and why I pick certain situations to fish each kind of spinnerbait. And you know, you probably watched a lot of spinnerbait videos before, and you're like, man, I know how to fish a spinnerbait. But you know what, guys? There's a lot of different blade combinations. There's a lot of different colors out there. And that's what we're going to do today, is really help break that down for you. But hey, real fast, though, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, you need to do so. We've got a lot of content that's coming down the pipe here pretty quick. And I think you are going to be really excited about what you see. I've also got a little sneaky thing that I'm going to be posting here soon. Think about starting something that I think is going to really help you guys and help you learn and see the insights of this industry. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But let's go ahead and dive right on into the spinnerbait video. You know, here I have the new tour grade Strike King spinnerbait. You know, I've fished a lot of different spinnerbaits over my time. I've fished the Strike Kings, the War Eagles. When Terminator was a big thing, I was using Terminators. I kind of used a little bit of everything. And I mean, if you look at my box, like, I literally still have a lot of everything in there. But one thing that was always intimidating, especially when I was younger, is really trying to figure out, you know, what colors do I need? What size blades do I need? What size weight do I need? And over the years of me fishing tournaments and being in a lot of different situations, I've kind of learned what I need, what I don't need. So let's just say, for instance, in color. Color can be really intimidating because, you know, there's a lot of different colors out there. You've got your loud colors like this coleslaw, or you got sexy shad. You know, sexy shad's a good color. It's more natural, as you can tell here. And trying to decide, okay, do I throw the more natural color? Do I throw the loud color? And here's the situations that I run into that I think help me determine what I need. So if I'm in, and I'm gonna give you some situations that I've been in over the country and things like that. When I'm in a situation like, let's say, for instance, at Grand Lake, and we're early spring, and the water's dirty, and it's cold. You know, the thing is I want something that the fish are going to be able to see. So the louder color is going to take over instead of the more transparent color. So that's the first thing. You know, that loud color really works. You know, the coleslaw, the solid white, white chartreuse, things like that. It really tends to work better. The other situation that might work better for that, or this type of spinnerbait, is in extremely clear water. Yeah, you heard that right. Extremely clear water, this really loud spinnerbait tends to work, especially if you have wind, and sometimes if you have clouds, but you don't necessarily need clouds, or if I'm fishing for smallmouth or spotted bass. That really loud color, those fish can see it from a long ways away. They'll come up there and they'll eat it. Now, if I'm fishing on a clear body of water for spots and largemouth, let's say table rock, and it's in the middle of the day, there's not as much wind as I'd really like, that's when I'm going to probably transfer to the lighter skirt, the more transparent skirt, and I'll get more bites that way. You know, a buddy of mine fishes Lake Ouachita a lot and fishes at night, and one of his favorite baits is a black spinnerbait. You know, they're able to see that spinnerbait. They can feel that spinnerbait. It's bulky, it's big. So picking your colors isn't as intimidating as we a lot of times make it out to be. One of my favorite lakes in the country, Sam Rayburn, you know, I've caught fish there on a spinnerbait for years. You know, sexy shad is definitely one of my favorite colors to throw on Rayburn, as well as white chartreuse. And let's say, for instance, if it's a sunny day with a little bit of wind, I'm going to go with the sexy shad, something a little more transparent. What this is going to allow you to do is, especially on a lake like Rayburn that gets a lot of pressure, that sexy shad being a little bit more transparent, a little bit more compact, gets more bites. Now on a cloudy day, windy day, where you're running the wind, you're running banks that have a lot of wind on them or bait on them, that's when you want to go to like a coleslaw, white chartreuse, something like that. It's going to be a little bit louder. There's going to be a mud line. Those fish are going to set up in that thing. So that's when you want to go to that. So colors, let's be honest, guys. Colors aren't the biggest issue here. I mean, there's a lot of different colors out there. You know, matching the hatch is a big deal. Golden Shiner. You go down to Florida, you kind of need that particular color. But it also works at Rayburn in the January, December. Blue Glimmer. Mouse is another great clear water color. This is one that I've used at Lake Mead. Just to name a few places. Mead, Table Rock, Beaver Lake. Mouse is just one of those particular colors that solid gray, a little bit more dulled down, tends to work better. Now, this is where the meat of this video comes in, and where I think that you can learn the most. So, there's a lot of different blade combinations out there. You can have double willows, you can have Willow Colorado, you can have a single blade, you can have double Colorados, you name it. There's a million different combinations. I'm going to keep it real simple for you and help simplify that process for you even more. When I'm fishing early spring, and I'm talking like December, January, February, that pre-spawn time period, or even winter time period, my blade combination, I'm going to keep it anywhere between a Colorado and like a Colorado turtleback like this here. I'm going to keep it double Colorado, Indiana. You get the picture. I want that rounded blade, that one that has a little bit more thump to it, that tends to work better. And that's especially if I'm fishing in like 6 or 8 foot or less. That really makes a huge difference. Now, if I'm fishing on a body of water where I really think I need the fish to see it, I'll go to the colored blades, you know, the solid white or white and chartreuse blades. This is a great early spring option. This absolutely will get you a lot of bites. This is one I've been using for a really long time, especially lakes like Cumberland, when those fish are getting ready to pull up to spawn. So that early springtime period, they really like those white and white chartreuse blades. This is a deal that I learned once again in Arkansas, and it definitely makes a humongous difference. But that's only if you're fishing shallow water. Now, like I said before, you can fish a spinnerbait from 6 inches to 40 foot. If I'm going with a real big, heavy-duty spinnerbait, I'm going double willow or even single willow. And the deal is with that is that willow leaf blade helps keep the bait down in the water column, and I can reel it slower. So I can use that bottom dweller, that hack attack bottom dweller, and keep that thing down in the near the bottom, because that's what you're going to do. So all you would do is you take that big 1 ounce, ounce and a half spinnerbait, throw it out there, let it go all the way bottom, and crank it really slow. You see this a lot, especially in clear water reservoirs, or when those fish are getting a lot of pressure from crankbaits and other things like that. That big 1 ounce spinnerbait can be a lifesaver that time of year, and it's definitely one of those amazing ways to catch big bass, especially that time of year. So as we transfer out of the pre-spawn, go to the spawn, typically I don't pick up a spinnerbait in the spawn. That's about one of the only times I don't, because I'm either looking for them, flipping, or doing something like that. If I do throw a spinnerbait, a lot of times I'll throw a compact spinnerbait, one that's like a 1/4 ounce, small blades, and maybe even in a bluegill color. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but that bluegill color spinnerbait in the spring definitely works, especially if there's some wind, because if you reel that bluegill colored spinnerbait over a bed, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. You're going to catch one of those really big fish that's spawning that you could not see. But that smaller compact spinnerbait definitely is my spawn spinnerbait. Going into post-spawn, we all know that is one of the best times to throw shad-colored double willow leaf spinnerbaits. Namely, like Sexy Shad, the Blue Glimmer is a great one, solid white. This is when the shad are going to be spawning. You want to match those blades, the size, to the shad that you're dealing with. So even if you're throwing a 1/2 ounce spinnerbait, this is where the modification comes in. And all your shad are about that big, I'm going to actually downsize this big blade here and put on this exact same size blade that I have on the inside. I'll downsize that. What this is going to allow me to do with a 1/2 ounce spinnerbait is reel it faster. And also, it's going to match the size of the bait so it's not intimidating to the particular fish. And even in some situations, I'll add a 3rd blade up here, a really small, like about the half the size of this one, and make it a 3-blade. I really love throwing a 3-bladed spinnerbait. I've modified them for years, all the time, especially for the shad spawn. I think it makes a humongous difference. So we talked about pre-spawn, spawn, post-spawn, summertime. Once again, it kind of transfers back to the pre-spawn, the deep water especially, because what you can do in the summer, if those fish are set up deep, throw that 1 ounce spinner, ounce and a half spinner bait. Fish it on the bottom where you would throw a big crankbait. You're not going to get as many bites, but you might get one of those really big ones. It's a great way to catch a kicker that time of year. Blade combinations, once again, are the same, the double willow or single willow. You just need to be able to keep that bait as low in the water as you can. It's going to make your life a lot easier. Now we're going to talk about the fall. You know, that's the time of year that we're in right now, and that's the time of year that I want to talk about. So the fall is, like I said before, is one of my favorite times of the year to fish a spinnerbait. And literally, you can go any lake in the country right now and throw spinnerbait, and you're going to have a chance to catch a good bass. So came back from Smith Lake. We had the water rise on us. We were fishing a bunch of different stuff, you know, from fishing the waterfalls where the lake was draining in. The lake actually came up like 2 feet in just like 24 hours. So you have a lot of new cover in the water. You got shad and herring that are funneling in these places. And that's when a spinnerbait really tends to excel. But the one thing about a spinnerbait, especially in the fall, that I've learned over time is I like a specific type of spinnerbait, especially if I'm fishing for smallmouth, spotted bass, or maybe I'm on a lake that the forage is really, really small, like they're eating those little tiny thread fins. I'm going to use a more compact spinnerbait. So this is like a hidden weight spinnerbait. So this actually is a 3/4 ounce, but it's a really compact spinnerbait. And this particular spinnerbait is one I've used for years. And it just, for whatever reason in the fall, that more compact body tends to work better. That more compact wire, the whole 9 yards, it just works better. And that's especially if I'm trying to keep my spinnerbait down or I'm fishing in deeper water. Lake Mead especially, you know, those guys are off. They actually had to cancel their first day because of wind. But I've been on a few bites at Lake Mead, throwing a 1/2 and 3/4 ounce hidden weight spinnerbait like that more compact spinnerbait, and had some of my favorite spinnerbait days in my entire life. That more compact spinnerbait tends to work. And this is kind of brings me to a cool little thing. When I was younger, I wanted to learn how to fish a spinnerbait, and it was the fall here at Toledo Bend. And if you've ever been to Toledo Bend in the fall, it's sometimes some of the toughest fishing you've ever seen. But I would take a little 1/4 ounce, and the company is actually Talon Custom Lures. It's a company made that makes spinnerbaits here in Hemphill. And they have a little 1/4 ounce, tiny little spinnerbait with little tiny blades on it. And I would take that thing and roll cast it around laydowns and stumps and stuff that's visible, like true visible cover. And it could only be like this deep. I mean, it was super shallow. And guys, I had some of the most fun I've ever had with a spinnerbait. You know, I didn't catch like, you know, 50 fish days, but I'd have 10, 15 fish days and have some good ones. And for some reason, in the fall, they just destroy a spinnerbait. I think they actually hit it harder in the fall than they do any other time of the year. But throwing that little 1/4 ounce spinnerbait has kind of morphed into my career. I mean, basically, I take that 1/4 ounce spinnerbait everywhere I go. Now, over time, I've adjusted spinnerbaits. I still throw that little Talon spinnerbait a lot, but I throw the little Mr. Money a lot too. And that's a little 3/16 ounce spinnerbait. It has a quick skirt, so I can change things out real quick. I can change, you know, if I think I need to go to a more transparent skirt, I can switch it out real fast. But that really compact spinnerbait, especially this time of year, can really add up a lot of additional bites for you. Now, when it comes to equipment, you know, I get that question a lot. And let's be honest, guys, you could go buy an American Hero Lose Combo, a 7-foot medium heavy with a 7.5 to 1 gear ratio reel, and go throw a spinnerbait on it and probably see just as much success as you would if you threw anything else. But when it comes to spinnerbait fishing, there's about 2 different types of rods that I like. It depends on what I'm fishing. You know, if I'm on a place like Lake Dardanelle and I'm having to roll cast that spinnerbait around cover, you know, like stumps, laydowns, around little grass beds, docks, whatever it may be, I'm roll casting, I'm going to go to like a smaller rod. I'm going to use a 610, you know, a shorter rod, something I can easily roll cast, a medium heavy action, a medium to medium heavy action, but I want it to have some tip to it. Line size, I typically never go below 14-pound test when I'm throwing a spinnerbait. but I will if it's a smaller spinnerbait. So like the 1/4 ounce, I'll go to 14. As I go up in size of spinnerbait, that is when I actually adjust the line size. So when I'm fishing Cumberland and I'm throwing that painted blade spinnerbait like this one here, I'm going to probably throw like 17 to 20 because they're not getting a good look of the line. And if I have a 3 or 4 pound smallmouth to eat that spinnerbait, I want to be able to get that fish in the boat, which sometimes it sounds easy, but it's not really that easy all the time. So that 17 to 20 with a 1/2 ounce weight is really good. Once again, if I'm throwing a 3/8 ounce spinnerbait, I'm going to go to that 14 pound test as well. The deal is it's kind of weird. You know, I grew up watching Jimmy Houston just like anybody else. And Jimmy always talked about a 3/8 ounce spinnerbait. I mean, literally, like, that's what he talked about. And I know Jimmy really well. He's a really good friend of mine. And, you know, I never had the success with a 3/8 ounce spinnerbait like other people have. I know Jason Christie has. I mean, he uses it a lot. I literally use about 3 sizes of spinnerbaits, guys. I keep it really basic. I use a 1/4 ounce, and that's mainly a fall thing. I use a 1/2 ounce like 99.99% of the time, and I use a 3/4 ounce all the rest of the time. I love a 3/4 ounce spinnerbait. When you have to slow reel it, especially early spring, and it's that mid-depth stuff, like that 6 to 12 stuff, like where a 1/2 is just not going to get it done, but I can get that 3/4 down there. I just think it gets really big bites, and I don't care where you are in the country, like that thing is just phenomenal. Or I like a really big 1 ounce, but that's so situational. You know, like if I'm fishing deep. But when I look at my spinnerbait box, it's a bunch of 1/4s, a bunch of 1/2s, a bunch of 3/4s, and I'll have a handful of 1 ouncers, a handful of 3/8s, just in case I get in a situation where I got to keep that spinnerbait up. But that's kind of how I keep my spinnerbaits. But back to rods though, I want that 610 if I'm roll casting, 1/4 ounce, 3/8, 1/2 if I'm having to put it around cover. Now for the bigger spinnerbaits, I'm going to go to a little bit heavier rod. And this actually I learned from Terry Bolton. And I go to the Mag Bass Rod 1. It's a 7-foot medium heavy. And this is a rod that you would typically use like for a jig, Texas rig worm, stuff like that. But the deal is with that 7-foot medium heavy, it doesn't have the tip to roll cast it as much or to like really accurately put it where you want it to every time. But if you throw that 3/4 ounce spinnerbait, if you throw that 1/2 ounce spinnerbait way out there, and you make your first few cranks and you have a fish eat it and you set the hook, you're going to be able to land that fish. You're going to be able to hook that fish. And that is a lot of times one of the biggest differences when it comes to spinnerbaits, what a lot of people don't understand, is they'll use too flimsy of a rod, they'll set the hook on a fish and it jumps out there and throws their spinnerbait. And they're like, oh my gosh, I had a trailer hook on it and everything and I don't know why I lost it. It's a lot of times because that's exactly the reason why. So go to that little bit heavier rod for those little bit bigger spinnerbaits. The only time that I would recommend going to a lighter action spinnerbait rod for long distance casting is if you're dealing with smallmouth that are just knocking the rod out of your hands. In that case, I actually will go to my 7.3 Magnum hammer that I always talk about. When it comes to reels, early spring I'll actually go to a 6/8 to 1 gear ratio. I think it makes a big difference. Some people are going to tell me I'm wrong, and that's okay. Jason Christie is a big proponent of the slower gear ratios, and I believe in what he talks about. I'm a student of the game just like anybody else. I watch everybody's videos, and Jason definitely knows his stuff about spinnerbaits. As it progresses throughout the rest of the year, I go to a 7.5 to 1. I keep it pretty basic. I want something that's going to cast far or roll cast easily. Just kind of depends on the situation. A hyper mag, custom light, I don't think you can go wrong with either one of them. But guys, I hope y'all enjoyed this breakdown of spinnerbaits. I know I've kept you a little while, and if you made it this far, I really do appreciate it. I hope you learned exactly how to pick your colors, how to pick your blade styles, and exactly what you need the next time you're out there spinnerbait fishing. Guys, I hope y'all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next one.